what conditions, especially in a country like Ukraine with fascinating history with its Jewish community, what generational shift or change kind of had to happen in Ukrainian society for them to be not only elect a Jewish head of state, but also strongly support him? I think Zelensky's poll numbers were down, but I think he's still by far between the most popular politician. And now you see Trump attacking him. People can probably rally around him, just like when Biden had kind of tried to isolate Netanyahu. The Israeli public, despite his struggles back home, kind of rallied behind him. So I'm really curious about that kind of generational
Hmm.
shift.
Hmm.
Because if you look at Ukraine, right after they gained independence, it still seemed like
Hmm.
there weren't ardent anti-Semites, but it was just kind of an accepted norm throughout society. So how did that change happen?
Right. If I had to pick one date where change happened clearly, it was 2014. That was when Ukraine had a protest movement that became a revolution against the existing pro-Russian government. The then pro-Russian government, uh, well, it prevented Ukraine from having a relationship with Europe. And the demonstration started out about Ukraine having a relationship, a trade relation, economic, a modest one, an affiliation. Um, and the president then reneged on a promise to draw Ukraine closer to Europe, and that led to mass demonstrations. That may sound like it has nothing to do with Jews. Well, there are two things that made it have to do with Jews.
Hmm.
First of all, in those mass demonstrations, uh, which were in the central square with speakers and music and all kinds of stuff, you had prominent Jews speaking. You had a rabbi speaking in behalf of the demonstrations. You had a leader of a Jewish organization. You even had a klezmer band. And the public sentiment was the Jews are with us against this corrupt pro-Russian regime. And that was very important, that moment to see Jews fighting for Ukraine to there were even fighting because when there was fighting, there were Jews on the streets fighting along with others for Ukraine to be part of Europe. That's the first aspect. The second aspect of it is being part of Europe is not just an economic relationship. Everybody understands to be affiliated with Europe, you
Hmm.
have to embrace European values. And one of the criteria for becoming part of Europe is how you treat minorities.
Hmm.
Um, uh, uh, and there are departments of the European Union that investigate this, and every country has to submit reports. If you're intolerant towards minorities, you won't be admitted into Europe. And so Ukraine understood that embracing Europe means embracing this value of pluralism and fair treatment of minorities. And of course, Jews are always a very prominent or visible, even if they're not very numerous, they're always the classical example of a minority group, a non-Christian group. And so I think that's important because it means treating Jews well and fairly became part of the core ideology of Ukraine after 2014.